Mario!
Super Mario 64. There is no other game in the industry that inspires so many memories and feelings as Super Mario 64. If we take out all the side games, Mario 64 is one of the best-selling Mario games. It was second only to Mario Kart 64 in sales on the Nintendo 64. It has a 94 on Metacritic. Basically, everyone who's played this game loves it. The designers and programmers still have fond memories of working on it. Mario is a name that is known as much as Mickey Mouse, and it only makes sense that for Mario to kickstart the 2D platformer genre, he would eventually do the same for the 3D platformer genre. To be fair, Mario 64 wasn't the first Crash Bandicoot game came out before Mario 64, but Crash 1 really is a 2D platformer in 3D. To be fair, the whole Crash series is like that, but that's a topic for another day. Plus, Mario 64 didn't just kickstart 3D platformers as a whole, but it also created a whole new genre, the collectathon genre. But before we really get into all that, I must talk about my personal history with this game. Super Mario 64 is not a game I played in my childhood. I have fond memories of playing the DS version, but when I was a kid, unless the game was really short, I never finished it, so the first time I saw Mario 64's ending was on the web browser version, when I used bugs to speedrun the game with my friend. That's my entire history with 64. I'm not a huge Mario fan. Galaxy is one of my favorite platformers, but 2D Mario is too bland for me, so I'm not the biggest fan of this guy. I suppose my affection for Sonic has something to do with it, but I want to go back and see Mario's first 3D game like I did Sonic a while back. So without any further ado, let's go. Alright, we've moved past all the introductions and explanations. Now, what about the actual game? How good does Super Mario 64 hold up? How good was Mario 64 in its day? And is the game fun? Well, the answer isn't very clear-cut. Super Mario 64 was the first 3D collectathon, and I will be judging it on that basis. I'm not going to call anyone YouTuber out, but I've seen too many reviews stating that boot out is a fatal flaw of the Nintendo 64 version. Actually, let's just start with the boot out system, the most controversial thing about the game. The game was the first of its kind, and the developers had visions of a location being different each time you revisit it. Bomb Battlefield is a perfect example. You start with King Bomb at the top of the hill, defeat him, and then he'll be another rolling ball down the hill. Then Koopa the Quick will be at the bottom of the hill wanting to race, and the cannons will open up. But you have to defeat King Bomb first. But the Nintendo 64 wasn't powerful enough to render all these changes after you've already been in a level, and so the developers had to boot you out of the level so you can hop back in a different scene. Was this necessary for all of the changes? No. Dire Docks only has Bowser's sub disappearing after the first star with no other changes. They easily could have done this without booting you out. But I can accept these kind of dumb moments for a unified system. It wouldn't have made sense to only boot you out when they needed to, and allow you to keep playing other times. Going back to Bomb Battlefield, you can do the Chain Chomp star before the King fight, and that's usually the first star I collect after starting a playthrough. But all the other stars are locked until after you beat that first mission. I don't mind the boot out system in the Nintendo 64 version. I believe it's part of the core experience. Now, my preferred version of the system would be in the best version of this game, Super Mario 64 Plus. I have a feeling some of the fans aren't going to like my stance on this. I have a lot of ports to cover today, however, if you have a decent PC, this is most certainly the best way to play this game. You can customize the experience so much it's practically unreal. In this version, you can set it to where a pop-up will appear asking you if you want to leave or stay. This is the best version of this system, although once again, I'm not holding it against the Nintendo 64 version, and I don't find it a problem there. Although, Super Mario 64 DS confuses me. The silver stars aren't available from the start, and they're locked behind their specific mission. Same with most of the new content. They easily could have made a boot out system like new Super Mario 64 Plus, or even just remove it entirely and you have to quit manually instead of choosing. Either way, the DS version of the system always confuses me. Alright, so back to the Nintendo 64. Mario 64 knocked it out of the park in terms of the controls. Mario controls the best he ever has before in this game. And hell, some of the later 3D games don't control as well as he does here. But once again, we'll save that for later videos. Mario's moveset is a lot more varied than the classic games, although I don't hold that against them. So many moves that make Mario was introduced here, moves that even were introduced in the 2D games that came after. The dive here is amazing. I prefer Sunshine's dive, the fact that you can do it multiple times, but I don't mind it here, it's just kind of finicky to pull off. You can enable Sunshine's dive in Super Mario 64 Plus, another thing that makes that port great. Although wall sliding was most certainly a miss, you have to press the A button right as you hit the wall, otherwise you'll be bumped back. Almost like a frame precision thing, it's really frustrating. This makes all the wall sliding missions really frustrating, like I said. The hardest being wall kicks will work in Cool Mountain. Don't let that name mislead you, they will not work. Super Mario 64 DS improves wall sliding by actually allowing you to, slide on the walls. And it goes without saying that Super Mario 64 Plus also has the Super Mario 64 DS sliding. Ground pounding is another natural addition to Mario's moveset. You ascend at just the right speed and you use the move often. Mario's full analog controls ensures near perfect movement, and although that means the camera is limited to the C buttons, I actually don't mind playing that way. I mean, sure, I prefer analog camera support, but that would have meant that Mario's movement would have been mapped to a D-pad, and Mario 64 can't be played without analog. What? You mean Super Mario 64 DS uses digital controls? Alright, welcome to the most controversial part of the video. Do I like Super Mario 64 DS's controls? No, not at all. Digital controls have their place in gaming. Games that are designed with them in mind work just fine. Something that comes to mind right away is Celeste. The problem is Super Mario 64 was designed with analog controls in mind. New courses like the Goom Boss Battles, Sunshine Isles, and Battle 4 don't have half as many control issues, because these are levels designed with digital controls in mind. They work here. But other than mini levels like the ones I mentioned, there are no new main levels and very little alteration to the level design. The only difference in the levels is the different ways you get to experience them as characters with new movesets. But because these levels were made with analog in mind, I cannot explain how many times I fell off Womp's Tower just trying to climb it, or fell down Cool Mountain. Am I just bad? Maybe, but I didn't die half as many times in my playthrough with the Nintendo 64 version, or Plus. Nor did I have half as many problems with the controls there. I know there are fans of the DS version, and I totally get it. The new content is nice, I enjoy playing as Luigi and Yoshi, but the controls are so bad I cannot replay the DS version. I know there's some emulator hack, Tox input, and you can use a touchscreen for something close to analog, but kids in 2004 didn't have emulators, and I hate forced touchscreen gimmicks. Plus, I played this on my 3DS, so. Now, 64DS did make some control changes for the better. I already mentioned better wall sliding, but now Mario can grab ledges better, pressing L censored the camera like a Zelda game, and Luigi's backflip breaks the game. But these mean nothing whenever I have no fun controlling the game. I know some people say, just use the 3DS stick. But that doesn't change how the game receives the inputs, that just changes how it feels to control. So overall, 64DS could have been the best version of the game. But the controls alone kill it. They really should have made an entire new 3D game instead of porting 64. I think the new content is awesome, and the controls aren't really a problem in the new levels like I already explained. If you're a fan of 64DS, awesome, I'm happy for you. It's too bad that I'm not. So we really only need to cover the levels themselves, as that's something I've barely touched on yet. Mario 64, in my opinion, has two types of levels, opened and closed. Some levels are kind of in between, such as Big Boo's Hunt, but most levels fall in one category or the other. Mario 64 considers the open levels to be easy and the closed levels to be hard, and I would argue that that didn't have to be true. Lethal Lava Land, despite being framed as an open level, I actually consider it to be a closed level. The level isn't that big and you don't have much to do. Most of the stars are focused on fighting the bullies, little bullet things that are pretty strong. This is the first level that really pushes combat, and I enjoy the challenge. It's funny how Big Bully is probably the best boss in the game. He's not really hard, but he's more fun than King Bob-Omb and more complex than the Womp King. After you do everything the small lava world has to offer, you can then jump into the volcano and do one of the two obstacle courses in any order you decide. The biggest thing that makes Lethal Lava Land stand out is how non-linear it is. You can do any of the missions in any order. Even my favorite level, Womp's Fortress, is linear in some sense, so it's awesome to see a pure non-linear level. The only level like this is Snowman's Land, and that level, well, it's one of my least favorites. I suppose the igloo is an interesting idea, it's just bland and feels like nothing more than an idea. They didn't flesh anything out here. And they shoved the Big Bully boss fight from Lethal Lava Land here for no reason, it feels off. Every boss makes sense in context of the level. King Bob-Omb teaches you how to fight Bowser, just like the rest of Bob-Omb Battlefield teaches you the mechanics of the game. King Womp is a bigger version of the Womps you already ran into. King Boo teaches you how to fight Boos. Wiggler is just a fun challenge, close to the end of the game, but Chill Buddy feels out of place. You don't have to fight any other enemies in Snowman's Land, you're not really forced to. so I don't know why this level has a combat challenge as its boss. But most levels in this game are very, very good. Bomb on Battlefield is very bland. As a tutorial world, it's fine, but I don't think there's enough content to stack up to most of the other worlds. It teaches you what you need to know, and it does a good job of this, but it doesn't do anything more. Just a few easy stars. Whomp's Fortress is my favorite level, it's so fun. This one is in the open category, and for good reason. You can skip this harder route by doing a backflip here, you can use the cannon to get to the caged island. Fun fact, I have never spoken to Hoot the Owl. Whomp's Fortress teaches you to explore and find easier ways to do things. You can climb up this pole and jump to the top of the fortress, a well-placed long jump can get you the star. While the level is linear, the actual design of the level is non-linear. I just love this level, and I learn new tricks every playthrough. The whole point of this level is to teach you to tackle things in a interesting and new order. You can take it the hard way, or you can do the easier way. But I do not love the two water levels. I don't hate them, I like Jolly Roger Bay, and I like getting on the sub in Dire Docks. But swimming in this game, well, it kind of sucks. I don't like the way Mario controls underwater, so naturally I don't really like these levels. I've grown to love Cool Mountain, though. It used to be one of my least favorite levels, now it's one of my favorites. This is another open level, and it was almost entirely non-linear. You can get any star from the first mission but the slide race one, which I suppose is fine. I still count this as a non-linear level, but I mean, technically it isn't. I think the mountain is big enough to be fun to climb without it being tedious. The other mountain level, well, it couldn't do that. Tall Mountain is perhaps too tall. It doesn't help that you have to climb to the top 2 or 3 times, whereas you're usually climbing down in Cool Mountain. Shifting Sandland is another level I really like, and it employs the same kind of level design as Lethal Lava Land. Start with an outside small area and have a small area inside focus on platforming. While Shifting Sandland feels more empty on the outside than Lethal Lava Land, I still enjoy the level. I actually like the pyramid more than the volcano, so there's that. Hazy Maze Cave is another open level, and while it's fun to explore the cave and the stars aren't very hard to get, it's one of the easier levels, and in my opinion, it's kinda boring. Big Boo's Haunt is somewhere in between open and closed, and I like to think this was a purposeful move. It eases you into the level design in the closed levels while still being somewhat open, and it was a level that you had to seek out and find. Once again, I think Lethal Lava Land does a better job at this, but I still enjoy this mansion. The layout is fun, and the library puzzle was also fun. When I realized I could punch the books, a huge smile grew on my face. Wet Dry World was not very fun, however, and I think this was because it was a closed water level that also tried to have a focus on platforming. In the DS version, you can totally cheese this star by using Luigi. And so before I cover the two worst levels in 64, let's take a look at some of the slide stars and the Bowser levels. First, the cap levels. I don't like the wing cap, so naturally I don't like the levels focused on it. The controls for it are terrible, and it's not fun playing through the air at all. The metal cap level was fun, if not bland. However, the secret under the moat was actually pretty fun, and it used the vanish cap in cool ways. The vanish cap is the only power-up in this game I really like. I don't mind the metal cap, but I hate the wing cap. It wouldn't be till Galaxy that they nailed power-ups into 3D game. The secret aquarium was, well, you swam and collected red coins. But yes, the Bowser levels. There's a lot of things I say I love in these games, but these levels have to be my favorite. They also have the best song in the game. They are the closest thing to classic 2D Mario levels in the game, and they are so much better than those classic games ever were. You only spend about 10 minutes in them overall, but they're designed so well. Hard platforming challenges as a lead-up to your fights with Bowser work really well as they test your skills platforming, and then you have to test your skills with the bosses. Oh, let's get this wrapped up. I love TikTok Clock for the same reasons I love those Bowser levels. A hard but fun platforming challenge with a cool and interesting theme. I know people don't like this one, but it's personally one of my favorite levels. Rainbow Ride is a fun non-linear level, but it's also a platforming challenge, even more so if you want to collect 100 coins. People hate on these two levels, but I personally find them super fun. And so, after you collect 80 stars, you finally face down Bowser. In an epic final fight on a star-shaped moving platform, this fight is tricky and hard. You must not hesitate, or else you will plummet to the abyss below. I love this fight. As epic as Galaxy's final Bowser fight, but it's just as good. Super Mario 64 is a game that isn't as big and epic as the Galaxy games or Odyssey, and while the lows may be lower than those games, in my opinion, the highs are mostly higher. We live in a gaming age where everything is defined. What I mean is technology has gotten so advanced that there's little hardship nowadays in developing games. From a technological point of view, I mean obviously developing games is still hard. New genres don't just happen anymore, and there's not many ways gaming can really evolve from what we have now. Sure, games are always looking better and getting much bigger, but developers haven't had to make drastic changes to keep franchises alive in a very, very long time. But let your mind rewind to 1994. The Nintendo 64 and PlayStation 1 haven't even come out yet. The latest mainline Mario game is Super Mario World, a large 2D platformer with a butt ton of levels. And yet you're tasked with adapting this gameplay style to 3D. Is it even possible? Well, from a technical point of view, no. The Nintendo 64 couldn't have handled a game with as many stages as Super Mario World in a 3D style like Crash Bandicoot. Almost every other Nintendo franchise was much easier to adapt in 3D. Ocarina of Time is basically a link to the past, just with an overhead view and a much smaller overworld. Metroid Prime is basically Super Metroid with a first-person view. Mario Kart 64 is Super Mario Kart, but with much more interesting tracks, better controls, and better characters. That being said, the Nintendo 64 can handle every franchise that Nintendo wanted to adapt. For example, like I said, Metroid Prime wouldn't be released until the days of the GameCube. But that was okay, because some franchise could actually wait to be released. But a Nintendo console without a Mario game? I've said it before in this video and I'll say it again, Mario is Nintendo's Mickey Mouse. But gaming godfather Shigeru Miyamoto found a way. And while he's at it, he created an entire new subgenre of platformers. Collectathons. And so that's how Mario 64 changed the future. And all we're doing now is peeking into the past. So let's answer those questions I asked a long time ago. How good does Super Mario 64 hold up? Mario 64 hasn't held up perfectly, I would never say it did, but it's done a lot better than other games of its era. How good was Mario 64 in its day? It might just have been the best game of all time whenever it was released. And is the game fun? Hell yeah. Alright everyone, thanks for watching. It's 3 AM and I need to go to bed. But once again, thanks for watching. I just want to remind everyone here that I have a Discord server and I have set up a Patreon. There are so many games I would like to play, however I don't have the money to do so. Like one day I would like to be able to review Sunshine. So this is a way I can get around to making videos for the channel that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. Plus, Lost Media videos will be going up on there soon, so for those of you that are interested in that, this has been my biggest video yet, maybe not in terms of length, but just in terms of production. And I only plan on getting bigger, so yeah, thanks for stopping by.